Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Brandon. Welcome to Audio Addiction, where you can find latest album reviews. You can find our band reviews, and you can find other musical-related content on the channel. I post 5 days a week at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you can make sure that you check out all this stuff. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that thumbs up, share it, subscribe. It goes a long way. Really been trying to pump out a lot of content to all of you, so if you are new, there's a lot of stuff that's coming down the pipeline. Hope to be doing some more reviews coming out either Friday or Saturday of this week, so you can be looking forward to that in the coming days. But tonight we're going to be talking about Toothless's newest EP, Misinformed. So I want to give a shout out to Alexa at N Agency. I'm pretty sure that's how I say it. I don't know. I've really screwed some stuff up before, so I figured I wouldn't say it. But I did an interview with them, which will be going out in a couple months. So you can make sure to look forward to that. It would probably one of my favorite interviews that I've done all year this year, and may be of all time. It's definitely in top 5 without a doubt, so I'm really excited to post that. But Alexa had sent me over this band to check out. They're from Wilkes-Barre, PA. They're kind of like a mathcore, progressive metalcore, hardcore kind of hybrid band. I'm usually not too much of a genre, just like Nazi about certain things, but I feel like they kind of combine different sorts of elements of those genres into their music. So I was really intrigued, really informed, and also because I had done the interview with them over this past weekend, I was able to get a little bit more insight into the record and stuff like that. So it's really cool to kind of hear who they're influenced by and to kind of, pass that information off to you guys. So I'm going to go through each track, all 3 of them, give you my thoughts and opinions on it, go through some pros and cons, and then finish it out with an overall rating. So the first track is called The Neighbors. I love the intro portion of this track. It has this sort of like dark and brooding like feel to it. Like, something's going to happen, but you really can't pinpoint it. It's almost like a scary movie, like when the killer's out there, and like obviously the protagonist can't find who the killer is yet, and it's just that like waiting period of like he's around, you just can't be found. So that's the type of vibes that I get at the beginning of this track. Not to compare 2 different mediums of art, but I feel like that was something that I drew a lot of comparisons to in terms of that. Travis comes in along with the other instrumentals in a super heavy fashion. They really completely just dropped it in, and it was super sick. The song has again a sort of darker tonality to it, which is probably one of the main reasons why I enjoy a lot of these songs. They have this sort of dark, brooding sort of feel, as I mentioned prior, and I love that it just spirals into this like chaotic madness, which again is further put on with this sort of mathcore sort of influence and the progressive elements that they bring to the table. But they also have a lot of like kind of hardcore, almost like, to me in my opinion, almost a little bit more of a deathcore sort of vibe. Just the way that they kind of have incorporate different sort of like drum patterns, different guitar parts, especially with the more heavier, like real in your face sort of just madness. I think that one kind of borderlines that a little bit, but they jump all over the map, which is really cool. The dissonant chords absolutely everywhere, courtesy of Brian, their guitar player, and I also love how often they change the rhythm. I think it has a lot to do with how James and Eric play off of each other and their skills behind their instruments respectively. I think they all collectively play off of each other super well, and I think that is definitely an understatement on any of these songs that you've heard. If you haven't heard any of them yet, I would highly recommend checking out pretty much all of them. My personal favorite is Grinner, but any one of them, I feel like you will get a really good idea of how they sound, what type of vibes they pull from, and obviously pulling from more portions of kind of prog and metalcore and mathcore sorts of mixed in there with some hardcore as well. So if you like any of those, definitely right up your alley. But I like that this kind of, again, borrows from those sorts of different genres that I mentioned before, and I think it makes this track in particular really interesting to me because They start off kind of slow. They have kind of a slow build towards that. They change up the rhythm towards like the middle late portion of the track. Then they go back to kind of the like really just in your face sort of just heavy punch, and then they kind of just end off with that, which is really cool. And I think it again just brings out a lot of the heavier elements that you can come to love to learn about this band for sure. So we're gonna move into track number 2, which is Grinner, and this one features Justin Botnitz of Hungry Lights. I'm pretty sure that's his band. I was doing a little research, a little digging, and that is what I came up with. So shouts to Justin. But this one takes absolutely zero time for you to get into the song. Being a 2-minute chaos, like I literally could not describe it in any other word than chaotic. And it just starts off super aggressive, manic, and from start to finish, you'll like this track's just under 2 minutes, and it is just bonkers from start to finish. It has a lot of elements of like Dillinger Escape Plan, Tony Tap Danza Extravaganza, a lot more kind of mathcore sorts of bands, even a little bit of Structures. I know that they're a little bit more in that like progressive element sort of side of things, you know, definitely more on the mathcore sort of side of stuff as well. But pulling from that, and obviously more swords of the like I would say hardcore mathcore elements rather than just like a progressive, like, you know, what you would expect from maybe like a North Lane or something like that. Which is definitely cool, and it has that just special sauce that I feel like a lot of bands always try to emulate. It may not translate as well, but for some reason they have that just ability to kind of tap into that Dillinger or that Tony Tap Danza Extravaganza or anything like Last Cloud, Sky Eats Airplane, that sort of just manic, chaotic sort of song, which is awesome. I also like that Justin adds kind of a lower screaming. I'm pretty sure he has the lower screams maybe towards the latter half of this song. It's a little bit harder to tell. I feel like, you know, obviously Travis's vocals are great, but from what I could tell and listening to it was that his vocals were kind of like mid-high kind of, and Justin's was definitely more so the like lower register of that. So the kind of harmonies between them two is really well executed, and probably one of the main reasons why this song hits as it does, which is really cool. The only way I can really describe it to anybody that's a new listener to this band is like a freight train plowing through a station. It really is just 2 minutes of chaos. That is the best way that I can describe this track to new listeners, is that this is 2 minutes of absolute brutal chaos. So if you're into that sort of stuff, which I absolutely am, this is the song for you without a doubt. So we're gonna move into the last track number 3, which is Timeline Eroded. This one, ironically enough, is their longest song, being closer to, I think it's a little over 5.5 minutes if I'm not mistaken. And the intro of this track reminds me a lot of another PA band, Texas in July. It has that sort of, I don't know, like that early 2000s metalcore sort of vibe to it, which again, being from that portion of Pennsylvania, and I don't know how far away, I know they're more north, so they might not be influenced particularly by the Lancaster bands, but I feel like, you know, being a part of PA, much like myself in the tri-state area, I feel like they pull a lot from that sort of progressive, that sort of early era of metalcore when it was coming out. So I can hear those sorts of riffs. I don't know if that was necessarily the vibe you're going for, Brian, but that was something that I could pick out. I love all the stops in the first riffs of the song, and just how James and Brian kind of line up the beats to the actual guitar riffs and the stops and stuff. I think that's super impressive, and I think that's on an intelligence level that I feel like a lot of bands really don't think about in per se. Like I would say a lot of mathcore bands really think about that, because just how chaotic and how just like infrequent certain stuff are. I think they really take into account how the drums and the guitar line up, or how the bass and the guitar line up, or how the bass and the drums line up. I think is really impressive, you know, being only one guitar player, one bass player, one drummer. I think it really makes that dynamic interesting in terms of the genre choice, as well as just the ability to think about the song and kind of diverge off of different things. So really appreciate that. There is some really interesting cleans, which I was hoping they would expound upon a little bit more, which if you watch the interview, they'll be talking about maybe future releases, which hopefully they will involve a little bit more cleans. That was a nice, pleasant surprise that I felt like I wasn't really expecting from the band, considering that the 2 tracks that I had listened to prior to this were mainly just screaming. So to hear cleans in a Toothless song was very cool. I don't know if they've included that in previous tracks on previous records, but to me, that just being kind of a new listener, first time listener, it was very cool to hear that. I also really enjoyed, which again, I don't know who the clean singing was. It could have been either Eric or Travis, not entirely sure, but it was awesome. I also really appreciate the sort of progressive nature of this track. I think the first half of the song kind of starts off really interesting, and then as towards the later end and almost towards the end of the song, it has more of an ambient appeal to it. So that was really interesting to kind of see how the song starts at this mark and it ends at the like 5 minute, a little past 5 minutes and 30-second mark. So to see that translate over that time frame was really interesting. Something else that I thought was really interesting was James's drumming. I think he does some really, I don't even know if it's blast beats, but it's pretty close if I'm not mistaken. His double bass part at around the 3 minutes and 13-second mark to around the 3 minutes and 31-second mark. That was really impressive. And to continue it for I think almost 20 seconds on a pretty decently fast BPM, I thought that was pretty interesting. And I thought it was impressive to me. I'm not a drummer, but I instrumentally, I thought it was impressive to me. The song is incredible, though. I love the growth of the song and how, again, it builds over time and kind of, mellows out towards the end to kind of wrap into the next track, which is Neighbors again, which is awesome. And again, I'd love to see how they kind of express themselves in a longer track, considering that the track that followed it was under 2 minutes, and to have this track be over 5.5 minutes, I think it's really interesting as on a writer's perspective to see them go from just like a 2-minute chaotic masterpiece to another kind of really good masterpiece as well that has more of an expansive sort of feeling to it and doesn't feel like it's entrapped to something or a certain thing. So really appreciated that about this track, and was one that I enjoyed as well. So some pros and cons that I have about it. The biggest con that I have, it's 3 songs. I feel like most people can deduce that at this point, but I would love to see a little bit more expansion, either whether it be another EP or a full length. It'd be curious to see how they translate something like this over 12 songs or 10 songs or something like that. I think the appeal of it, I don't know if it would necessarily waver for me because I really enjoyed the 3 tracks that are on this EP, but it would be curious to see how they kind of expound upon that in sort of a full-length perspective. So very cool. Some pros that I have about it: heavy, chaotic. If you're into like any of the bands that I mentioned before, Dillinger, Sky Eats Airplane, Tony Tap Standard Extravaganza, some hardcore bands, some metalcore bands, some mathcore bands, any of those sorts of genres, I feel like this will be right up your alley. Instrumentally, super impressive on all fronts, whether you're a bass player, guitar player, drummer. There's everything under the sun that you can think of in terms of instrumentals are awesome. And also, I think vocally is very solid as well. I'd love to hear a little bit more expansiveness in terms of Travis's vocals, like either more lows or kind of doing some high screams. I think that would be really tight. But not to say he played it safe, but I'd love to hear more of an expansive nature in terms of that. But my overall rating for Toothless is Misinformed. I'm going to be giving it a 9.7 out of 10. Definitely a band to not sleep on this year. I know there's a lot of great releases coming out, and this one is one to have on your radar to listen to. It is out now. It came out last Friday, I believe, so go check it out if you haven't already. I will leave links below to check out the band. But go give this one a listen. It's super heavy if you're into kind of mathcore, post-hardcore, metalcore, hardcore, any of the core genres, most likely, then you'll really enjoy this. But let me know in the comments what you think about this record. If you agree, if you disagree, I'd love to know your thoughts are below. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to share it, like it, subscribe. It goes a long way. Doing some really fantastic work, whether it be interviewing bands or doing backstage press. It has been a really phenomenal experience, and I'm hoping to kind of do new stuff. Might be getting into the reaction videos, so if you are in a band and you want to see a reaction video from me, let me know. I hope to be doing those fairly soon, and I'm really excited for the next chapter. But thanks to Toothless for letting me review a record. Thank you to Alexa for sending it over. I'm excited for y'all to check out this interview when it comes out next month or a little bit later after that. It's going to be freaking hilarious. So my name is Brandon. We hope you got your fix, and we'll be talking with you soon. Peace.